Hi, my name is Heath Towson, and today we're going inside the archives of the Rhythm Discovery Center. In front of me, I have three different Billy Gladstone snare drums. Billy Gladstone was known for being an incredible percussionist, inventor, as well as a great teacher. Some of the things he's known for inventing are practice pads, different sticks and mallets, the Gladstone mallets. He also invented a drum set kind of based on these snare drums, and most famously, the Billy Gladstone snare drum with a three-way tuning system, which makes each of these drums so unique. Now, Billy was the head percussionist at Radio City Music Hall and was an incredible snare drummer, and thus needed a drum that would really live up to his technique. So he invented this drum with a three-way tuning system, is what we call it, and out here in my hand is the drum key that accompanies each drum. You'll see a Gladstone three-way key on each drum, and this key has three different points. And the way that works is that we have a lug or tension screw up here that's got a hex nut on the outside that's linked to the bottom lug, which is threaded in reverse. So you'll see we have the three different points. Now what that does is we put the first point on the drum. That will actuate only the tuning for the top head. As we move to the second, it will actuate only the lug on the bottom. As we move to the third, it will actuate both the top and the bottom heads for tuning the drum. Now the reason for this was that most drums at the time had a calfskin drum head, which was very temperamental due to weather, climate, and other changes. And Billy found it very distasteful to be turning his drum over and tuning the bottom head while the other performers were playing. So it gave him a much more subtle and discreet way to tune the drum, and also a much quicker and efficient way to tune the drum if you can only tune it from the top head, which is a lot more convenient. So kind of out of necessity was born the three-way tuning of a snare drum thanks to Billy Gladstone. Now in just a moment we're going to go through each of these unique drums and some of the features that kind of set them apart from most other snare drums. Gladstone snare that we're going to discuss is a snare drum that Billy made for one of his first pupils, Shelly Man. Shelly Man was a great West Coast jazz drummer as well as an LA studio and sound effects percussionist. And this drum features several unique things to the Gladstone drums. Now most Gladstone snare drums were 7 inches in depth by 14 inches in diameter. Now Shelly's is only a 6-inch deep drum by 14 inches in diameter, and it features a 3-ply Gretsch black lacquered shell, and most Gladstone drums were a 3-ply Gretsch shell. And you'll see this is a really high gloss black lacquer, which was one of Billy Gladstone's favorite finishes to use besides gold lacquer. Now occasionally you'll see a Gladstone snare drum that's covered in a wrap or like a pyralin covering. It's kind of the older term, but Billy really preferred to use a black lacquer over the covering because he believed that the covering inhibited the sound coming out of the drum shell. So in the ideal situation, most drums are a black lacquer. Now this one has gold plating on all of the hardware, so this is really the only drum that Billy ever made in black lacquer with gold plating in a 6-inch depth. He much preferred the 7-inch depth for orchestral drums. Now this one also features what we believe to be an original Billy Gladstone hand-tucked calfskin head. Now Billy specifically tucked his calfskin heads so they would have the most contact with the bearing edge of the drum for better response and sound. And all of the Gladstone drums featured this snare strainer or a throw-off right here, which you'll notice is very smooth and fits extremely flush with the rim of the snare drum. And it has incredible action. It's probably one of the smoothest strainers you can use. And then also over on this side, right next to the strainer, we have a muffler that's got a dial gauge, so you can kind of set as a reference to how muffled you had your snare drum. And then as we turn the drum around, you'll notice that there's a nameplate on the front of the drum, which says usually who the drum is dedicated to and what date it was produced. Now this drum was for Shelly Man, and it is from April of 1950. And one of the unique things about a lot of Gladstone drums is they're also numbered. Now this drum was actually the first drum that Billy Gladstone made, The second one is technically for Buster Bailey, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. The numbering is a little bit off though. Since this one was created first, but was not sent out the door, it was numbered drum number 1, whereas the Buster Bailey is numbered drum number 0. So technically this should be drum number 0, but it is lettered drum number 1, which is kind of an interesting fact about this. So this is the first Billy Gladstone snare drum produced that we have right here. Alright, the next drum that we're going to feature is a drum owned by Eldon, or most commonly known as Buster Bailey. Now Buster Bailey was the principal percussionist for the New York Philharmonic for over 50 years. So this drum has had a lot of history playing on many of the famous New York Phil recordings that you would hear. Buster Bailey uses this drum very regularly, so you'll see it's got different kind of scratches and a beautiful patina to the drum. Now this drum also features a 3-ply gloss black shell, kind of like the man drum that we just talked about, except for this drum is 7 inches in depth by 14 inches in diameter, so it's a little bit deeper, and this was Billy's ideal depth for orchestral playing. Most of the drums that he produced, he really preferred to stick to a 7-inch depth, so this would kind of be one of the more common sizes and finishes that you would see. You'll notice all of our hardware is chrome plated as opposed to gold plated on the other drum, and the chrome plating was also more common than the gold plating. Now Buster has done a couple things that are unique to his drum. We're going to turn the drum to the side here so you can see the throw off. It's just about the same, except for Buster has added a little tiny piece of felt on the rim so you can have a quieter operation of the throw off, so you don't hear it clicking against the rim during an orchestral performance. You'll notice that this throw off is incredibly smooth. It's very easy, light to the touch. He also has the number dial for muffling on the drum, and then notice he's got his 3-way key on the side like all drums, and then he has the number plate up front which says Eldon C. Bailey, and this is from 1949 from Billy Gladstone. And this drum, we actually have some correspondence between Billy and Buster when he's working on it, and he compares this drum to the Steinway of the drum world. It's really an incredible, beautiful piano gloss black. And it's really interesting to read their correspondence kind of talking about the drum. Now Buster has changed his drum up a little bit. I'll turn the drum over here so you can see the bottom of it. Now this snare drum features synthetic gut snares, which Buster put on, and he also has plastic modern Remo Weather King heads on the drum, as opposed to calfskin, like on the Shelly Man drum. So you see he's got some aftermarket, what we call aftermarket snares on this drum, just to give it a little bit of a more responsive and kind of a drier orchestral sound. Alright, our last drum that we're going to talk about is kind of a mystery Gladstone snare drum. Now you'll notice this one is also 7 inches in depth, as well as 14 inches in diameter, like our Buster Bailey drum that we just talked about a moment ago. It's covered in a white pyrrolin pearl covering, or white marine pearl as is more commonly known today, which is kind of unusual for the Gladstone drums. As we mentioned earlier, Gladstone really only liked to have the lacquer on his shells. Now this is a 3-ply Gretsch shell, like the other 2 drums that we talked about a moment ago. It's got modern plastic mylar heads on it, which is a little bit unusual. And moving around the drum, you'll notice we have some gold plating as well as chrome plated pieces. Now you'll notice it does have the same throw off over here with incredibly smooth action. We've got some chrome pieces and gold pieces for the adjustable tension screw on the snares right there. And moving back to the drum, there's a couple things that are unique about it. 1 being the wrap, 2 being the hardware pieces, and 3, you'll also notice that we're missing the name tag on the front of the drum. And most of all Gladstone drums come with an identifying name tag on the front that identifies who it was made for and what year the drum was produced. So, in doing some research on the drum, that's led us to several different conclusions about what could possibly be the identity of this drum. Now, in talking to a couple experts, we believe that this could possibly be a sample drum that Billy took with him to show different finish options on the drum, since it's got a mix of chrome and gold plated hardware, as well as a white pearl or it could just be a snare drum simply assembled from spare parts of other Gladstone snare drums that may have been left behind or were taken to make kind of a new drum out of old parts. It doesn't look like it was actually ever owned by anyone, in particular due to the fact that it doesn't have a name tag. It's missing original style Gladstone snares, as well as the fact that it's come to us with modern heads, which almost anybody could have changed. So it's kind of a real mystery drum. Alright, I'd like to thank you guys for watching this episode of From the Archives of the Rhythm Discovery Center with the Billy Gladstone snare drums. We hope you guys will join us for another episode.